This episode is sponsored by Brooklyn Bedding. Looking to upgrade your sleep? Get the perfect mattress delivered right to your door from Brooklyn Bedding. Their unique cooling foam means you'll sleep comfortably through the night. And with mattresses for every body type and sleep style, even in hard-to-find sizes, you can be sure they'll have the right fit for you. Plus, they'll offer a 120-night comfort trial with hassle-free swaps and returns. So if you're ready to start sleeping better, just go to brooklynbedding.com and use promo code COMMAND at checkout to get 30% off site-wide.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks, and today joining me, we have a special guest because we're talking about green, and nobody knows green better than the Brian Kibler.
Hello.
Absolutely. So today, I know it's like, we're like how to beat green. We're bringing the
Give
player.
away all my secrets.
I know, that plays green the most. But Brian's a giver and is here to tell you all of the ways that you can beat the big bad green in Commander. Because there's a lot of counterplay in Magic, and I think people think about it very literally, where they're like, you know, burn decks have life gain decks, and there's like to be life gain decks, you have Voltron decks. Like there's a lot of counterplay, but there's this, I don't know if it's a myth, but there's this belief in Commander that there's no answer to green ramp decks in the format because there's a social stigma against any like repeated land destruction. Yeah,
there's definitely a sort of protection by the sort of social contract of the game that it's like, well, you can't blow up everyone's lands. That's too rude. So it's very safe to just ramp your lands.
Put a ton of lands on the battlefield, right? So it doesn't feel like there's an amount of counterplay to it. So today we're actually going to talk about what ways you can play against it and how you can sort of play against ramp in a way that feels smart and is actually effective. I want to call it out. Trinket Mage did an episode on this topic vaguely. So it's about how to beat green ramp decks. If you like this episode, you should go watch that one as well. We wanted to dig in a little deeper and, of course, get Brian Kibler near to spill all of his secrets. So before we get into it, I want to talk about why green is so powerful in Commander. And I do think there's like there's a lot of reasons. The first thing I think of is flexibility. Like Commander asks a color to be able to do it all, and green's pretty good at that as long as it's attached to a creature.
Yeah, I mean, green also like is a color that can access other colors very well.
Oh,
too,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
Like, because, you know, we're not necessarily talking about just mono green. The fact that you do have this mana ramp, mana fixing, lots of that is green, and lots of that allows you to find tools from other colors to help shore up your weaknesses as well.
Yeah. Something I was thinking about a lot was the natural play pattern of green in 1v1 fits the natural play pattern of Commander as a format a lot better than other colors.
Oh yeah, if you spend your first few turns like playing, you know, ramp spell and a ramp spell, you're at like 10 life, right?
Right,
like,
you're dying.
you're getting beat up by the aggressive deck.
Right.
And Commander doesn't lend itself quite as well to the natural predators of ramp decks, which tend to be aggressive decks.
Right, your life total is 40. So like if you deal 10 damage to somebody while they're ramping, they're like, okay, I'm at 30, I got plenty of time, and I have a 10 drop. So it just feels like a lot of the downsides to green strategy is sort of sewn up by the natural slowness and sort of need to go over the top that Commander has.
Yeah, I'd take a combination of just kind of the natural dynamics of a multiplayer game and, as we mentioned earlier, sort of the social contract of what is okay. Because even like the way that people tend to play the game in Commander, they usually aren't like, well, I'm just going to keep attacking you until you're dead.
Right.
That's what 1v1 is. I'm going to keep attacking you until your life total is 0, and then I'll go on to the next game. In Commander, it's usually like, well, I'll attack you, and then I'll attack you, and then I'll attack you, which gives decks, green or otherwise slower, like
blue decks,
for instance.
Absolutely.
I think a sort of buffer that you wouldn't have in a more competitively oriented environment where people are like, that's the threat, kill them.
Right, absolutely. It's the social structure of Commander does really protect your life total while you're not doing anything. And it also has this thing where the thing that green is doing, like blue, is not on the board for the first
Speak for
few
yourself.
turns.
My green deck's mostly creature decks. They
I was
play a
gonna
bunch
say,
of stuff and
you're
then
like,
like,
elf,
kill that guy.
You're like, that's way too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever's happening needs to die. But if you're spending like rampant growth and that kind of thing, you have sort of this like secret stack of lands that you've been developing that doesn't look like you're super scary because none of them that is like an imminent threat to your life total. But there's the other thing I wanted to mention is green has a lot of cheap spells that are very powerful that have a lot of redundancy. So like there's 1,000,000 1-mana like mana creatures. There's 1,000,000 2-mana land ramp spells.
Yeah.
So the consistency of green, it's a lot easier to build a consistent green curve than it would be for a lot of the other colors just because of that depth.
Yeah, if you're looking for like kind of a package of cards, Olivia and I have our cards in a literal library card catalog.
Yeah, we do.
And there is a drawer that just says ramp.
Yeah.
And that is a drawer full of cards that I'm just like, I need Llanowar Elves, I need Arbor Elves, I need Rampant Growth, Kadama's Reach, Cultivate. Those are just in there.
Right.
Right? Because those are such staples that they go into so many different decks. And I mean, of course, you can build, I mean, we talked about this in the How to Play Green episode, the sort of mana acceleration or ramp or whatever that you're interested in having in a green deck, depending on the kind of deck it is and you know what you're trying to lean on. But generally, if you're playing a green deck, you want some sort of mana acceleration because that's a big strength of the color.
Right. Is the early acceleration, that explosiveness into threats that could end a 40-life multiplayer game. And the other thing is green is a very proactive color identity. I think some of the more controlling natural color identities like white or blue have a little bit of trouble actually closing the game with 40 life rather than green, which does a really good job of going like way over the top, where green is designed naturally to make a ton of mana and use a ton of mana to kill people. White is designed to like efficiently answer threats and like sort of eventually control your opponent until they're dead. But that takes a much longer time to kill people than like I play a bunch of 1-mana creatures and play an overrun.
For sure, yeah.
So green has a lot of reasons why it's like very, very powerful. If you want to watch you should watch the How to Play Green episode that we did with Brian. It was great. It was long. We talked about green for a long time.
Got a lot of things to say.
Yeah, it was great. It was so much fun. But it's also, this episode is going to be more on the flip side. So we're going to be like, you're sitting across from green. You feel like it's this unbeatable sort of boogeyman deck at your table. What you can do, what weaknesses there are, and how do you take advantage of that when you're playing against it. So the next thing I want to talk about is the weaknesses. We do go over it in that episode, sort of in depth, but I want to do a quick review so when we're talking about strategies, we remember all of that. So the question we asked then was, what does green struggle with? And this is often like from the perspective of a green player, what things do you not have access to?
Yeah. I mean, green typically has pretty weak creature removal. Most notably, you know, it leans on, at least within the color itself, general like fight effects. So if you don't have the biggest guy around, you're not going to be able to deal with an opposing creature very well, which lends you to being more vulnerable to, say, flyers, right? Because maybe there are some green reach creatures or something, but usually you're not going to be able to defend yourself very well. Whether it's with your big creatures or a bunch of tokens against like people attacking you with a lot of flyers.
Right. Reach tokens aren't super prevalent. So being able to block with like your key reach creatures is not as common. Board wipes, of course. Green doesn't answer creatures very well. So when there's another threat at the table, green hopes to go over that threat rather than actually remove those pieces. The other thing we talked about a lot is green's kind of flat-footed. It commits a ton to the board and then hopes it untaps. It's not very good at like playing at instant speed and like disrupting things, but it's also not very good at just being like, all right, here's all my stuff, I win this turn.
Yeah.
Because haste isn't super prevalent unless you're playing in red or in other colors that allow for that. Or like flash stuff is not as prevalent. So it's just sort of like, okay, I'm scary. You have a turn.
Yeah.
But those are things that you can keep an eye on when you're playing against green to be like, okay, they're set up. What could they have to take this board and turn it into a win, even if it's not on the table just yet? So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at a green deck and know what their weaknesses are, especially if I find that like if you're playing a color, it's a lot easier to see the weaknesses in it.
Yeah.
So like when you're a green player, which is part of the reason why I asked you to come, other than you're just a great Magic player, but is when you play a color a lot, you're very used to being like, well, I'm out of cards, so I lose this game. Or, well, they had this, so I lose this game. And it's a lot easier to see those cracks in a color when you're familiar with it. And I think if you haven't played a ton of green, playing green gives you an idea of like what is precious to the green player when you're playing against them. So we're going to get into the mindset of a green player and how you can start picking that apart. But if you're enjoying this episode, if you enjoyed the How to Play Green episode, you can support this episode and other episodes like it by using our affiliate links. If you go to cardkingdom.com/command, they've got a huge selection of singles, green and otherwise, that you can pick up all in the same place. We trust Card Kingdom because they have so many cards. And when we're building a deck, we want to buy as many of those in one place. They can get it shipped to you safely and precisely. And then when you open it, you can get sleeved up and start playing right away. They've got great customer service. They all come from one team of professional people who know Magic cards and know Magic players. So if you want to support the show and you want to pick up some sweet cards, go over to cardkingdom.com/command. And once those cards are in your hand, you can also support the show by using our affiliate link at UltraPro at ultrapro.com/command. You can pick up some sleeves, deck boxes, binders, playmats, everything you need to be a well-accessorized Magic player. If you're like me and you're really into Edge of Eternities, they have some very cool spacey playmats that show off the different worlds that you deal with in Edge. Or if you want to keep things simple and clean, check out the Mana 8 line. Those are white, and they've got the big mana symbol, so you can show off if you're a green player, if you're a blue player, if you're a red player, white player like me, you can really sort of show off your team spirit. Plus, there's a MagicCon coming up, and the Mana 8 line are the best for signatures. They're bright and they're white, and they show off the signatures really clearly, so they make a great memento. Again, you can support the show by going to ultrapro.com/command. And you can support us directly by going to patreon.com/command-zone. All of our patrons get access to game nights and extra turns a day early without ads. And you can come hang out with us on the Discord, talk about Magic. There's an Ask the Hosts channel where you can ask us our opinions on various things, and we like to keep up with our patrons in there. So check that out. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode, and this one is dedicated to Danielle Citrone. Danielle, you rock. Okay, we've done it. We've done the dance. Let's get into it. What do green players fear?
Spiders. No,
Spiders, definitely. Heights.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, definitely heights.
It's always funny to me when people say, like, oh, I have an irrational fear of heights. A fear of heights is very rational.
Very rational.
Very rational. Actually.
Absolutely. It's a long way down.
Yeah.
Fall damage is serious.
Yeah. It's not just a thing for MMOs.
Yeah, you take that. Oh, man. And
Life is hardcore mode, okay?
Absolutely. You don't respawn at the bottom. Yeah. That's not how it works. Yeah, I like that I said before, I think thinking about it from the perspective of a player is a great way to give you an idea of what to remove on the other player's board. Mm-hmm. So if you're like, I'm not great at threat assessment and I want to figure out what to remove, getting into their mindset and being like, okay, if I had that board, what would matter to me the most is a great way to think about it. So, I wanted to talk about it from that perspective. Like when you're playing a green deck, what are you looking out for the most? And what do you hope your opponents like don't have?
So kind of fundamentally, right? A deck that has a lot of ramp in it is going to have a higher density of cards that generate mana than another deck, right? Like my Dragon deck, for instance, which isn't like a green deck, but it very much functions like a green deck because it is about generating a bunch of mana and playing a bunch of big things.
Right.
And that deck has over half mana sources. Right, like it's like
it has to be.
Yeah, it's like it's well over half. I think it may be like in the range of like 60 cards that are dedicated to generating mana.
40 lands at least.
I want to say there's about 36 lands.
Sure,
but there's like tons of 2-mana rocks, bunch of 1-mana creatures, tons of 2-mana like land rep spells.
Right.
So it's like
you want to be on turn 7 on turn 3.
Exactly. So when your deck is full of that many cards that are dedicated to mana, it's all that much more important when you have any form of card advantage, right? Because your average draw in your deck, while the high end may be really high, the average is going to be something that just produces mana, right? Like most of the cards you draw are just something that gets you more mana.
Right.
So you need, either you're just playing these huge hits that people can't answer, or you need to find things that draw more cards. So if you do have like permanents in particular that generate card advantage, things like Guardian Project, things like Great Henge, those are frequently among the cards that green players lean on the most because they need to have repeated sources of card advantage in order to make up for the fact that, again, so much of their deck is dedicated to generating that much mana.
Right. And a lot of those are, a lot of green play patterns, the reason it can draw cards, the reason it can ramp is because it leans on creatures so much. So it's this, the way green plays is encourages you to overcommit to the board. It's like you will draw more cards when you commit more to the board. And you're like, but I need cards so I don't get blown out. It's like, well, then put more on the board.
There you go.
So it's a snowball-y pattern where it's like you have to dump what you have to get more. And yeah, when you lose your card advantage source, you're just like, okay, I have 40 mana, but it doesn't matter. There's nothing to actually spend that on. And I would say like with my green decks are exactly the same way. They're like half of it is ramp and half of it is card draw. And then there's like a couple of threats, which usually have card draw built in because, or they have ramp built in. But it's because once you commit a threat, you need to draw another threat.
Yeah. I think it's one of the big reasons that you see a lot of very popular commanders that are used in green ramp decks are ones that themselves generate some form of card advantage.
Right.
Things like Chulane, right? Like I have a Chulane Karuga deck that is all cards that cost 3 or more.
Right.
But that deck can just, once it gets going, it is disgusting.
Yes.
Because it's just like, okay, well, more land, more creatures, more land, more creatures, more land, more creatures, which all are doing the thing, right? Similarly, like, Hugs. Hugs is like another like kind of like casual table level, like really powerful card because the commander itself, you're like, okay, I will play it and it'll generate so many cards for me. And then so many more of those mean the next time I play it, it generates more mana, so it's even more stuff.
Right.
And that sort of thing, ends up being very powerful. And obviously when you get to the higher levels of power, like EDH type stuff, Thrasios, right? Like, a commander that is just a built-in ramp / card advantage machine.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that you see green commanders like that, again, being so powerful and so popular.
Absolutely. I mean, it's also like something we're going to talk about later is trying to eliminate that card draw engine when you're playing against green is really important. And if that card draw engine lives in the command zone, you're like, oh, the key to getting this back is only 2 more mana, which I have. I definitely have that. Yeah. So it's a very interesting. That's why it feels so difficult to disrupt because those things work together so well. The other thing I know when I play against green, like my greenest deck right now is the Colossal Dreadmaw deck that tries to cast bad creatures as 6/6s and hope I have enough 6/6s to win. But that deck is so soft to flyers. Like if somebody just decides they're gonna kill me, I'm like, yeah, they're Colossal Dreadmaws. They're on there. They can't reach. You're right. And a lot of the time, like somebody's 4/4 flying commander will kill me. It definitely will if they just decide I'm the one they're going to hit.
Yeah. I have a deck that's very similar to that. I have my Baru Wormspear deck. Which is, so that deck is built in homage to the very first like actual Magic deck I ever built, which was, in the many before times. And the deck was nothing but forests, Llanowar Elves, Wild Growths, and Crowworms. Nothing else. It was like 15 of each or something because this is before there was a 4-card limit.
Right?
It might have not even been 60 cards. Maybe like 80 cards. Maybe 20 of each. Who knows, right? I don't remember exactly, but like I was just like, oh, I could just play a giant creature really quickly by playing just like a bunch of mana ramp. And the way I have build decks has never changed. But the Baru deck is literally all mana elves, mana enchantments, and worms, and that's it.
Yeah.
There is not a single piece of interaction in the entire deck. And
player removal.
But that deck can win games because it will just go like elf into Selvala into giant worm, giant worm, giant worm. Oh,
that kills people.
You're dead.
That kills people. That's the other thing is that when you're a green player is you're like, okay, I have done the thing. I have become a threat. I have to untap.
Yes.
So you do live in fear of board wipes after you've done that big setup turn, which is why it's really common in Commander to play a bunch of small things that are non-threatening and then play an overrun, which turns your one threatening thing and all your little non-threatening things into massive threats all at once.
Craterhoof.
Yes. Craterhoof, like any number of these things that just says like all my little stuff cannot now kill you because it doesn't waive that threat of like, oh, you have 1 million worms. How much power do you have on board? You're like 45.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's very obvious that you're going to kill them next turn. But this sort of like secret overrun in your hand is very powerful because it sort of sneaks you under the radar until you untap. And that's why it feels like green decks can sort of win out of nowhere. But you're just not, it's not out of nowhere. You're just not reading between the lines enough to see that like 15 1/1s won't be 1/1s very long in the overrun color. The other question I wanted to ask before we move on is if you sit down at a pod and you're playing like a green ramp deck, like you're playing the Crawlworm deck or something like that, what is like the opponent that you would focus on first? Like if you see them, you're like, that's going to be a problem.
Whoever I think is the most wrath in their deck for the Crawlworm deck.
The white deck.
Nothing but creatures.
Right. Definitely it's a white deck probably. Yeah. Or like the most controlling deck at the table probably. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes the most sense. And I think it's interesting, like all those things that we talked about, like, board wipes or just even spot removal for worms, that kind of thing, are very common in Commander. And yet we're sort of like, well, you know what would be better? We could finally beat green if we had Armageddon. So I do want to talk about that myth because I think that's really interesting. And it's sort of the reason that this episode exists is this sort of undercurrent of players that think that the answer to green ramp decks is land destruction. And is that actually true? If Armageddon was suddenly not taboo and we were used to it, would land destruction be something that a green ramp deck would actually fear in that way?
So do you know what the best deck to play Armageddon in is? A green deck.
Yeah.
I first ever Pro Tour top 8, 2000, playing a deck with 4 elf, 4 bird, 4 Armageddon because I have things that still produce mana. Do you?
Where did yours go? That's so crazy.
I think that the taboo surrounding mass land destruction in Commander is very understandable. Yeah. Right? Because like cards like Armageddon, cards like, Cataclysm, all these things that set you to like 0 or 1 or whatever lands, that basically stops anyone from being able to play the game from that point. And like, that's not what people are here for. Right. Obviously, if you're playing CEDH or you're in a group that like wants to play those things, that's totally fine. Yeah. But the average player wants to participate in the game. Right. And mass land destruction effects not only like stop people from being able to participate in the game, but they actually, assuming that you're playing, against opponents who have non-land mana sources, and green has the most of those, it's worse, right? If they have mana creatures, if they have mana rocks, and similarly, like green also has many of the best tools for recovering from an Armageddon. Right. So you're putting everyone else back to 0, and then the green player is going to have a leg up in getting back to wherever they were in the first place. Right. So I think that while they are good against decks that are just going, like whole hog on getting as many lands into play as possible, many of those decks also, again, have ways to recur those lands and are going to be hurt actually ultimately less than the other players who don't have those tools. I think that's absolutely true. I think that's something that people are sort of coming to realize is that green decks and like decks that have this lane recursion, of course, decks that have alternate mana sources, definitely, but also they just also have more ramp. Yeah. So it's like, even if they, like, let's say all their lands are blown up. They play a land, they cast Rampant Growth, they're ahead already, and their deck is full of those pieces. and it's also, if cards like Armageddon were in sort of the metagame of Commander, right? Like people are going to build their decks and play their games differently. Right. So, while, you may surprise someone with an Armageddon, who didn't know you had it in your deck, and if you do, you're kind of a jerk. Yeah. In Commander these days. Absolutely. Yeah, I do have a deck with Armageddon. Yeah. Which is my Pro Tour deck because Armageddon was in that deck. I have a Rift deck that is only cards that I've ever played, like the Pro Tour or Grand Prix, that every card is a story.
Look, I have Catastrophe in it.
And that deck is Armageddon in it because it has a story. But in a world where people are expecting Armageddon from the white deck, right? They're both going to like navigate the game differently if they think that may, really just blow them out. They'll have more cards like Ramen Up Excavator or Splendid Reclamation or whatever. If they're a big mana deck, they will have ways to recover that the other people in the pod who are not the green deck will not have.
Yeah, I think something that a lot of players don't recognize if they haven't played 1v1 is, or like Cube or something like that, is that the point of Armageddon or even like Winter Orb, that kind of thing, is to freeze the board in place. It says no more stuff coming or going from the board generally. So it says whoever's ahead on board stays ahead is like the original intent of, or the original like play pattern of an Armageddon is the white player plays it when they've played all their threats, wipe the board, no threats from you. So it does, and it has the sort of the same effect in Commander, which is freeze the board in place for a second. So if you're ahead on board, like the green deck often is, the Armageddon helps you.
Yeah.
Because it says we're a long way from the next board wipe.
Yeah, that's exactly what you mostly do with it is I want Armageddon so you can't kill all my creatures.
Yes.
Right? Because Wrath of God costs 4. And if I Armageddon, it's 4 more turns before you can Wrath me, and I can just kill you before then.
It's board protection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that misunderstanding is like, you have more lands, I should have a way to blow up all your lands. And you're like, that's not effectively the same play pattern.
Yeah, it's you are setting in particular, again, in a multiplayer game, you're setting everyone to 0. You're not, oh, I'm going to stop you from having so many more lands than I do.
Right.
It's that we're all now at 0, and that is a generally unpleasant play experience for everyone involved, and doesn't actually do as much as you think against that player, especially if they are prepared for it.
There's also something to be said for just the other players are incentivized to not let you do that.
Yeah.
If you're like, I'm going to cast this Armageddon to slow down the ramp player, they're like, no, you're not.
I want my lands.
No, you're not. I'm going to do, I'm like, I for sure don't want that to happen at all.
So I will say I have seen a lot of conversation online about, mass land destruction and specifically about planetary annihilation.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this card.
So planetary annihilation, I see a lot of people kind of lumping it into the same like bucket as cards like Armageddon, referring to it as mass land destruction. And I think it's a totally different kind of card.
I agree.
I think that planetary annihilation, I love this card.
I love
for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I think that it is a card that is actually the kind of thing that you want against the green deck that's ramping a ton.
Let me read this card just for people who didn't see it. Planetary Annihilation is a red sorcery. It's 3 red. It says each player chooses 6 lands they control, then sacrifices the rest. Planetary Annihilation deals 6 damage to each creature. So this effectively wipes the board and brings everybody back down to 6.
Yeah.
Not 0.
Right.
6.
And I see people, talk about this again in the sort of the same breath as Armageddon, and the way that the game plays out from the point where this is cast is so different.
Right.
Right? Like, yes, maybe you had 12 lands, maybe you had 15 lands, and now you're down to 6. But like, and yeah, that's a huge amount of your mana that's being cut off. But it shouldn't just be entirely sacrosanct to be able to have as many lands as you can get, and there be no way to stop it, right? Like that's I think kind of where we got to this point that we're discussing is the social contract of basically saying that cards like Armageddon are not okay, which leads to, I'll just only land ramp, and then there's nothing anyone can do to stop me, and I can always use all of my things that cost a lot of mana.
Right.
Planetary Annihilation is like, well, that is a way to once, again, there's still all these cards we talked about that give you the tools to recover from it. It allows you to once sort of cut that off and force someone to rebuild so they don't just have all the mana in the world forever, but doesn't stop everyone else in the game from being able to do anything at all.
Yeah.
There's such a big difference between going down to 6 lands versus 0 lands or 1 land. And I think that there being something that prevents people from just being able to go totally out of control by always playing all their lands and having there never be any sort of threat to them because of, again, that social contract. I think it's just a very good thing. I love the existence of this card.
Absolutely. I really like the expansion into this kind of design space that says like...
more of it.
I know. That's the problem is there's only one. It's only in one color. I think it's perfect in red.
There's Urza's Silex.
You're right. Urza's Silex. Let's read that. 3 mana for a legendary artifact. 2 white. Tap, exile Urza's Silex. Each player chooses 6 lands they control. Destroy all other permanents. Activate only as a sorcery. Then when Urza's Silex is put into exile from the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you search for a planeswalker, it doesn't matter. So this is 3 mana to get on the battlefield.
That can matter.
If you do, search a library for a planeswalker card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
Yeah.
So it's 3 mana to get on the battlefield, 4 mana to activate this. At sorcery speed, it's exiled. So it's 7 mana to do effectively what Planetary Annihilation does, but it also blows up other permanents. So enchantments, artifacts, that kind of thing. It like actually sets everybody's mana to the same place. It's not like parity breaking with artifacts and that kind of thing. Yeah. So Urza Silex is close. I would say it's pretty disruptible, but it's much more disruptible than Planetary Annihilation. The thing that's interesting about both of these cards that I wanted to ask you about is both of them also blow up creatures. Yep. So it does this thing where it wipes the board, but it also resets the mana. And I wonder about a card that's like Planetary Annihilation, but just the land part. What is that? That's like 1 mana cheaper or something like that. Is that the same? Is that better? What does that do?
The funny thing is, like, it may be a better card for the decks that want it,
right,
is the funny thing.
But it goes in fewer decks.
Right. I think that's probably the case.
I think that's fair.
I actually think that having the destruction of everything else attached to the sort of mana reset makes it so these aren't just like, I am playing an aggressive deck and I am going to flood the board and, beat you up with things and then destroy all the stuff that you're ramped into.
Right. Yeah.
So I actually think that it's probably just sort of a better kind of design, like, systemically, if this kind of thing isn't Armageddon, where it's like, hey, you can't answer the stuff I played, and is instead, I'm going to, like, answer the board. And, I mean, with Planetary Annihilation, if it were just, obviously in a multiplayer format versus 1v1, it can be very, very different. But like, being able to, like, reset that person while not also just falling massively behind the aggressive deck, for instance, or the token deck, I think is overall a good thing, but I do think that it's probably pretty important that it's not just like, hey, I'm stopping anyone else from doing stuff while I beat you up. Right,
yeah. I mean, if it brings you down to 6 lands, it doesn't really stop them from doing anything. But it does say, like, the ramp, the work that you put in is gone and I will continue to hit you. Yeah. So it has it's funny how different the card is when you change that. The difference between a destroy all permanents, including lands, and destroy some permanents is a big difference.
What you need is the like protection from red or indestructible creatures you play with it.
There you go.
You just boom, there you go. And then you keep getting them.
So I think Planetary Annihilation, I agree. I'm very curious about this card, and I hope people try it. I love that they put it into precon. I think that was really bold. It is hilarious. It's in the green ramp deck.
It's in the green ramp deck that wants to sacrifice lands.
It does. So. And bring them back to the battlefield. Yeah. So it is also abusable by red-green decks that have this built-in land recursion, which is sort of the problem with mass land destruction as a tool against ramp. But it is cool to see them start trying it, to try and answer this strategy that has so far been unanswered in Commander. All right, so mass land destruction, not quite the answer we're looking for. Planetary Annihilation, we're getting closer. But there are things that you can do to beat green ramp decks at your table, and we're going to get to the rest of them after a few words from our sponsors.
And in August we have that set, and in September we have another. Rachel, wake up! I think the product fatigue may have finally gotten to you.
Look, I can talk about cards all day. It's not that. It's the summer heat and my old mattress. I just haven't been sleeping well.
Oh, well, if you want to upgrade your sleep, what you got to do is get a new mattress from Brooklyn Bedding. I got the Aurora Lux cooling mattress, and it has been amazing. The cooling foam keeps me comfortable through the night, so I always wake up rested and refreshed. Brooklyn Bedding mattresses are great for spinal alignment and back health too, and there are plenty of different options for any body type or sleep style. They've even got an easy 2-minute quiz to help you find the perfect match for you.
Nice. I'll take that quiz right after recording.
Sounds good. Now, are you ready to talk about the thousands of new cards to keep track of?
The product fatigue! He's crashing! We need his cool and rejuvenating Brooklyn Bedding mattress! Stat!
Go to brooklynbedding.com and use our promo code COMMAND at checkout to get 30% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. That's brooklynbedding.com and promo code COMMAND for 30% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. Again, brooklynbedding.com, promo code COMMAND.
Hello and welcome to Apogee Science. I am Kilo, your knowledge interface for lucrative opportunities and owner of Kilo's No Lies Cake Shop. Even for a supercomputer like me, starting my own business was intimidating. I needed a partner, but after many contenders failed my rigorous tests, I found the perfect e-commerce companion, Shopify. Their design studio full of ready-to-use templates let me build an effective online store, or as I call it, at my web portal. Then their marketing platform helped me launch email and social media campaigns to reach new customers and dispel the hateful rumors about my cake's existence. And with Shopify's expertise in global shipping, they ensure my totally real cakes make it exactly where they need to go. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see why Shopify powers 10% of US e-commerce. So make a note, with Shopify, you too can find huge success.
Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/TCZ. Go to shopify.com/TCZ. Again, shopify.com/TCZ.
Yes, let's go.
Oh, sweet. You're finally playing Marvel Strike Force.
Just started. I found this code 4. It unlocked the entire Fantastic Four team for free.
Nice. That's a great team to get early. They're Fantastic Four.
I just said that.
I was gonna say they're fantastic for the Heroes campaign. Human Torch will really blaze through those early nodes to unlock more characters fast.
And I hear they're releasing a new Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman to tie in with the new movie. So if you max out Torch and the Thing now, you'll be ready to rock as soon as they come out.
Sounds like it's clobbering time.
And don't forget, the original Invisible Woman is still amazing in the late game. Like in Alliance War, you can try pairing her up with Scarlet Witch and Vision. Her psionic shield protects the team and stuns enemies. So Vision's safe to swoop in with his laser. They'll never see it coming.
Because she's invisible.
Sick.
Then there's Mr. Fantastic. It's not a stretch to say he's top tier in Cosmic Crucible. Combine him with the Illuminati, you're going to dominate. His Orbital Assault Ultimate annihilates enemy defense bonuses.
So with one promo code, I've got Mr. Fantastic for Cosmic Crucible, Invisible Woman for War, then Human Torch, and the Thing.
Pretty sweet deal.
I guess that 4 code really was fantastic.
Hey, there you go.
Get it.
Marvel Strike Force. Click the link in the description to download it now, and for a limited time, use the code 4 to unlock the entire Fantastic Four team for free.
You browsing for some new tech?
Yeah, I'm building Tiamat and ARCHIDEKT. Ooh, how about Zergo and Ojutai?
Did you just drag and drop that card image directly into your deck?
Yep, with ARCHIDEKT, you can drag and drop card images from EDH, Rec, or Scryfall directly into the deck list. No typing required.
That is so cool.
Ooh, okay, check this out. I'm gonna drag and drop Dragon Storm into the deck, and then boom, I'm gonna drop a bunch of dragons on the battlefield.
A 9-drop, huh? Seems ambitious.
It was just for the pun. ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/command zone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/command zone.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about beating up green, which is why Kibler's here, so we can beat him up. Just kidding. I would lose.
Just try it.
Not me. Ah! That should be the thumbnail from this video. You just getting wailed on. No!
Gotta do the classic thumbnail face.
Oh, yeah. Mouth has to be open.
Yeah.
Big, shiny teeth. All right, we promised you answers on how to beat that green ramp deck at your table. How do you stop losing to Craterhoof? Well, we've spelled out some answers. You can choose the ones that fit you the most. Some of them are better than others, but my favorite answer, as always, is just hit him.
Kill him dead.
Kill him dead. Hit him early. They get started slower. Mm-hmm. You spend your first 2 or 3 turns, sometimes your 4th turn ramping. Usually it's like ramp on 2, ramp on 3, and then resolve some kind of threat. But they're taking time off where you could be playing something on turn 2. You could hit them with an equipped creature. You can start getting some chip damage in, start applying that pressure while they're still setting up. Mm-hmm. And I think that damage isn't often spent super strategically in Commander. That those like first few hits are just like, I don't know, you went first, I'll hit you.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about earlier, right? Mm-hmm. Like in a lot of cases, people kind of, follow a like sort of social norm of, well, I'll attack around the table.
I'll roll a dice.
You're at the highest life total or whatever. Rather than being like, well, if I give your deck time, your deck will win. So I'm going to give your deck less time.
Yeah. And it's not about killing them before they do anything. Yeah. It's about taking care of some of the life total. So if you have to do something, it's easier to kill this person.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Because there's often a time when you're playing against green decks where it's like, okay, I need a board wipe or we're going to die. But this sort of opens the door to, I need a board wipe or we need to kill them before they untap. Mm-hmm. And those 2 options are much easier to find than finding the 1 to 4 board wipes in your deck inside of one turn, and you can still cast them. So I think people get this misconception that they're like, oh, I'm trying, that's not fair to try and hit them to the point where they can't play anymore. And you're like, no, that's not the plan. You get them to like 29 and that you feel that. That's a different life total than at like 36.
Yeah, there's a very big difference in terms of how you have to play a game when you are at, say, 30-something life or if you're at 20 life.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, or especially like single digits, right? Like if it's like, oh, if I get hit one more time, I am dead. And now instead of, oh, I'm going to be able to spend all my mana drawing cards or developing like more mana or whatever, you're like, okay, I have to like hold back chump blockers. I have to, use the gain life mode of whatever card instead of the proactive mode of that card. And that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So even if you're not like, full on bullying someone until they're dead, which is very often my experience playing Commander.
Welcome to Commander, Brian.
Yeah,
Die.
Even if you're not like full on archie enemying, it is valuable to get damage on against the decks that you think have the strongest long games in your pod, rather than just, oh, I'm going to throw damage around. Again, even if you're not just straight up killing them, because no one wants to sit down and play and have everyone just be like, kill them.
Yeah.
Like that ceases to be fun very quickly.
Absolutely.
Right. And it is probably better to have conversations with people about like, hey, you're killing me all the time. Like, what's going on? They're like, I hate your deck. It's like, okay, maybe I should play a different deck. Or,
yeah, we can talk about
or
this.
whatever. But like, this isn't fun.
Right.
So again, the whole idea of Creator is to have fun, but it is also not fun to just get totally steamrolled in the late game because you didn't attack that person early because whatever reason.
Because you were trying to spread things out, or you weren't really thinking about it. Like I think if you're coming to this episode, then you're like, I can't beat this style of deck, and I don't want to play this style of deck.
Yeah.
So what am I supposed to do if I feel like I'm helpless? And the answer is often, use the weaknesses that's built in 1v1, which is just like, it's a little slow. If you can get some damage on them, then it's easier once a big threat comes down or something that feels like it's impossible to get through. Now you're like, okay, but I've already done 12 damage or something like that. I've done some of my work while they were dawdling, which is good. Or even if you're just like, some of the most powerful cards we were talking about in Green in your engine is like a Beast Whisperer or a Guardian Project. Those have to come down first. And if you're getting hit a little bit in the early game, you're like, okay, do I have time to like take a turn off to play the Guardian Project and then follow it up with creatures on the next turn? Or do I have to play like a couple creatures now and then next turn I can do like creature into dork?
For sure. Yeah.
And then they've committed more creatures to the board before the Guardian Project comes down. So that's great. That little bit of pressure just says like, I might have to play a little bit differently to defend my life total at this point. And that is a victory. Like forcing a chump block with a mana creature is a victory. Like,
oh, I hate to.
I know. Well, commanders hate blocking. Commander players hate blocking. We don't block. I have 40 life.
I have found that commander players very often block way earlier than they need to.
Yeah, well, you have 40 life.
They're like, oh god, I don't want to take 10. That's such a big number. It's like you have 40 life.
You have 40 life. That's only 5.
Yeah.
In 1v1. Sometimes you can take 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think this is sort of something that players aren't super interested in doing, is thinking about this early game as like, okay, I can spend a little bit of time disrupting them without actually spending removal spells. And that's just by attacking that life total. Because we're told life total is a resource and you're not dead until you're at 1 and that kind of thing. But you're like, yeah, but life matters. Well,
it's a resource, and you when they are spending their mana resource and to and their cards to generate generate more mana, then you need to attack that other resource. Right. Like it is a resource, but it's a resource that your opponents have the opportunity to restrict. And that's important for games that you want to ensure don't go so long that they're just able to overwhelm you with their mana card advantage.
Right. Green is a snowball-y color. It's going to get better the longer the game goes on, and it's very good at getting set up and sort of being able to turtle until they draw the card that can win them the game all in one spot. So there you're like, okay, well now I'm very inconvenient to attack without anything but flyers, because they can make tokens and they can like have a big 6/6 with reach or something like that. It can be inconvenient to get death touchers to get through. So if you have the opportunity to hit them before they're turtled, it's worth doing. It's like if I'm playing against a Go deck at the table, it's like, guess who I'm attacking right now? Guess who I'm sending this at? Well, I have the freedom of choice. I will be attacking you.
I will exert my option while I have it. Because soon I will not.
Hit you in the face, as I have respect for what you can do later. I think that's a great option, is just when you have damage to start throwing it around, send it at the player that you're afraid of the longer the game goes on. The next thing I want to talk about is targeted disruption and just disruption in general. So how to disrupt a green deck that can feel so overwhelming, where it's like you have like 20 threats on the board. Like if I spend one removal spell, like you already have 2 other things. So if you have disruption, how do you spend it against a green deck?
I mean, alluding to what I was saying earlier, the card advantage tools are the most important thing.
Yeah.
When you are up against a deck that is as mana dense as most green ramp decks are, if you can cut them off from their ability to access extra cards, they will frequently just spend their turns drawing lands. Right? And this kind of dovetails with the discussion about life being a resource. It is a lot better to like take 10 damage then give your opponent a few extra cards, right? If your opponent has a big creature that they're going to attack you with and a Beast Whisperer, you should usually kill the Beast Whisperer.
Absolutely.
Because that will snowball into more big creatures and potentially just be this insurmountable pile of stuff that you can't possibly have enough removal for.
Yeah. I mean, green, I think Scootsworm is sort of like the perfect comparison to what it's like playing with green decks sometimes, where it's like when it comes down, you have to answer the one thing, because then it becomes an exponential problem. So like you thought this turn was scary, the next turn is going to be twice as scary, the next turn is going to be twice as scary, because it turns cards into resources and resources into more cards, and so you have to sort of disrupt it when it's small, not to the point that's turning it off, but like starting to limit some of those things before it snowballs. Like a snowball that's half as big grows a lot slower than one that is bigger. That's what snowballing means. For anyone who has never seen a snowball and doesn't understand the term snowballing,
the surface area each part of the surface area.
So
can
if you discuss
snow.
the circumference.
Okay, do you know pi?
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this because it's sort of a green, like when you're playing 1v1 against green, you're supposed to bolt the bird. That's the rule, right? You kill, and that's sort of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Is like on turn 1, before they have a threat, you don't hold your removal for the threat, you kill the bird, and the threat comes later.
Yeah.
In Commander, do you bolt the bird? And what does that mean?
I mean, like if you do have the opportunity, like obviously Commander decks are built a lot different.
They are.
You probably shouldn't Toxic Deluge a Llanowar Elf,
Probably
right?
not.
Like it's
a big gun to kill a small thing.
Yeah, that's not really gonna but you should probably Toxic Deluge 3. Right? Like it may not be like, this is something that's going to win the game, but if they're going to be 3 mana ahead of the table because they played elf, elf, elf in the first turn, like that's a very realistic thing to just wipe off the board. And they may get mad at you.
Yeah.
Like you should have saved that for that person's thing, but at the same time, you have stopped them from just running away with the game by playing some powerful, like a Great Henge or something in the next turn, some powerful card advantage tool.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's something that like we'll sit on board wipes until there is a game-ending threat on the board. And there's, especially Commander in 2025, I feel like has drifted sort of from Wrath of Gods into casting sort of big haymaker board wipes that have sort of drifted more toward Farewell and Austere Command. These
I love me a Raise the Palisades.
Raise the Palisades. Yeah. Like if you can cast a more expensive board wipe that's one-sided in the late game, it can win you the game rather than just slowing things down. But the trend of moving away from more efficient board wipes, with the exception of like Blasphemous Act and Toxic Deluge, which we still play, does make it safer to play more mana creatures because they just live longer. And it does make it so if a threat spirals faster than you, like if they get a Scootsworm down on turn 3 and they start duplicating it, your Austere Command is too expensive for you to be able to disrupt them when it matters. So I wonder if this trend toward more synergistic board wipes that are also win cons has made it more difficult to combat snowball-y decks like green decks that rely on creatures.
It's very clear that having board wipes that are typically, set up for a win makes it easier to play mana creatures, right? Like you're less likely to get them blown out. And that, lets you get to your Guardian projects and whatever else, the things that are going to allow you to accumulate and be able to, kind of overcome your board just getting wiped out a couple turns later. I don't know if that's necessarily like a kind of problem, so to speak. Because I do think, like games are probably more fun when people aren't just like kill all the stuff.
Kill the stuff right now. Yeah.
Okay, now no one has anything. Kill the stuff.
Now we start the commander game. Now that we've all played our things and I've killed all those things, now we begin.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that is sort of the natural evolution of Commander is how we've decided to play board wipes is like they're a last resort. But if you have this green deck that is a problem at your table and you're like, well, why can't I ever answer them? It might be a result of the suite that you're taking.
Yeah.
It also might be the suite of board wipes you're playing, but it also might mean that you're not playing enough board wipes, or you're not deploying them when you should, not deploying them early enough.
Here's a little free tip right here. And not that any of these trips cost you anything. But
they cost us something.
As far as board wipe, one of my favorite board wipes in Commander is Tragic Arrogance.
Oh, sick!
Because Tragic Arrogance is something that allows no matter what you are playing, pretty much, unless you're playing like a token deck, it allows you to keep your good stuff,
right, and
force your opponent to lose their good stuff. Tragic Arrogance is a white 3 for each player. You choose from among the permanents that player controls 1 artifact, 1 creature, 1 enchantment, and a planeswalker, and they sacrifice all of their non-land permanents. Notably, you can choose the same permanent for multiple instances of this if they have the same type. So, like someone has an enchantment creature. That is your enchantment and your creature. And it can both be just a very effective, tool. If you're behind in a game, it can be an effective tool for your head in a game, right? It's like, oh, all of your untapped blockers are dead and I kill you.
Right.
Right. So, and it also isn't like the sort of thing where it's like, you can politic a little bit with it too, because it doesn't kill everything. You can be like, oh, I'll let you keep your good thing if you don't do this and that kind of thing. So one of my favorite board wipes in Commander for sure. I've also played that in 1v1 competitive play because that card's good.
This lines up with one of my favorite board wipes right now in Commander, which is Split Up.
Oh, Split Up is great.
It's 1 white for a sorcery. It says choose 1, destroy all tapped creatures or destroy all untapped creatures. So 3 mana, all untapped creatures or all tapped creatures. I'll give you a hint. Most creatures
are untapped.
Except creatures that have attacked or mana creatures. Yep. So it's really great to fire off in the early game because it can clean up tapped mana dorks, or creatures that can attack and want to attack. So you can sort of take care of creatures that are relevant in the early game. Or if you're an aggressive deck and you can get your creatures tapped, you can attack and then blow up all of the untapped Beast Whisperers and that kind of stuff. So it's a great board wipe for like choosing your moment and controlling what's happening on the board.
I play that in my rip deck with just a bunch of vehicles to tap all my stuff, whatever. So.
It's so good. It's 3 mana.
Yeah, it's real good.
Like,
Split Up's excellent.
I've had so much fun casting this card, and it's only 3 mana, and it's not. It feels much more like targeted removal than like mass removal. So it can feel like a removal spell if you're just like, well, your commander is terrifying, and you attacked with the last turn, and it incidentally kills those 2 mana creatures, and that's enough for me. I don't need this to kill 12 creatures.
I do feel like the terminology, even just like board wipe, right, that people use to refer to anything that can kill multiple creatures, tends to make people think, oh, I need to kill everything.
Right.
And you don't. And Split Up is the perfect example of a card that can do that and give you the utility, to take out what you want to most of the time.
Yeah. There's one more I want to talk about because I just remembered it. I think this is what it's called. Yeah. Make an example. This is from New Capenna Commander, my favorite Magic set. Seriously, I need to find out who designed all these cards and kiss them. They're my favorites. This is 3 black for a sorcery. Each opponent separates the creatures they control into 2 piles. For each opponent, you choose one of their piles. Each opponent sacrifices their creatures in the chosen pile. This is perfect for taking care of the player who's super ahead because suddenly they're like, okay, I lose so much more than everybody else. First of all, it doesn't touch any of your stuff, which is incredible. But the fact that it kind of makes your opponents prioritize what they want to do and gives you the choice to give them, one thing less than the other, what you're more afraid of, makes it a very flexible board wipe that kind of does what you need it to do without setting the game all the way back to the Stone Age, like a Wrath of God can feel like. Yeah, so I think these kinds of cards are a great answer to how do you answer green's early game without just feeling like you're constricting the game and slowing it down.
And just having a deck full of Wraths, for instance, right? You're going to end up giving that player who is ramping to big things more time.
Right.
Because you're setting everyone back so much. You're setting yourself back so much. So things that give you sort of more modality in terms of your board clears that aren't actually fully clearing the board, I think are a great choice to give you ways to handle these kind of decks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're just more fun. You create like the make an example is just creates a fun moment in the game.
It's fun. I think this card's awesome. Yeah, I like
fact or fiction for dead.
The fun thing about Commander is making choices. Yeah. So if a card forces everybody to make choices, suddenly everybody's playing, and you get less of this Commander thing. That's like you play and then I'll play and then you play. It gets everybody involved, which is fun. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about was targeted removal, especially with creatures. We talked about prioritizing card draw. There's also this, like, you can hit big threats, but obviously. And then answering commanders, I feel like, is what happens a lot in green decks. And they're like, okay, untap, recast my commander. And you're like, that was not the one to spend the removal spell on. Because the thing that's so powerful about commanders is they're always available if you have the mana to cast them. So removing the commander is not a great target for the deck that has the mana to just redeploy it for free.
I do think that if I were to like make a list of most common commander mistakes, using removal on a commander when it's not essential is super high on the list.
Using Path to Exile on commanders.
And I mean, obviously, like, if you're, especially, like, say you're just getting, like, attacked for 5 with a commander, and you've taken no commander damage from that commander, very often people are like, well, you're attacking me, I don't want to get attacked, I'm gonna kill your commander. And that's like, okay, but that thing comes back. The other thing you didn't kill does not. Right. So, and especially if it's like a Path to Exile.
Right, which gives them half the mana to answer.
And especially if it's a commander that has some sort of enters the battlefield ability or anything like that, which many do, you are not necessarily making progress in terms of shutting them down in terms of what they want to do. If you're using removal on a commander, it is something that happens so often and so much more often than I think is justified.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next thing you can do is turn their threats against them. Ooh. There's a lot of ways to do this in Commander. The first thing is clones. Clones are a great way to be like, you have a big thing, I have a big thing, for much cheaper than your thing. And if you're playing blue, just running some incidental clones that can take advantage of a player that snowballs much faster and has an Dragon deck, for example.
Nothing good to copy here.
For example, an old Gnawboner arrives.
Yeah, if you haven't watched the Game Nights v Commander at Home episode of Commander at Home.
That is an incredible game.
It was an unbelievable game.
It was.
No spoilers, unbelievable game. But
yes.
Jimmy was playing his Atali deck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no powerful cards to hit in my deck. I'm playing Dragon.
It's just ramp. That's all we talked about. Yeah, I mean, this, like, being able to cast something like Atali that steals their big spells and cast them for cheaper, or like I like playing like a clever impersonator that says no matter what kind of big permanent deck you're against, you have something that you can be like, also me.
I love a Phyrexian Metamorph.
Phyrexian Metamorph's perfect. It just catches you up to these decks that you feel really far behind, but you don't have to do all of the ramping that they did beforehand. So it's a great way to like shortcut it and get you to the level that they're at. Obviously, blue only has access blue is the only color that really has access to clones, unless you're Mirage Mirror deck, in which case you probably are also a ramp deck. But I think red's goad goes a long way too.
Goad effects, the big like threaten effects. I definitely had a game where I absolutely popped off with Dragon, and the next player just cast like an Insurrection and killed me.
Yeah, that happened to me when I was playing my green deck. Aaron Hansen did it to me on Hijinks. I was like, look at all these dinosaurs I have, and I'm going to untap and kill everyone. And what Aaron did was untap and kill everyone.
Yeah. It's like, thank you for your hard work.
Yeah, get like Disrupt Decorum and Taunt from the Ramparts, I think are like staples in the format, but they're great against green decks that have to do this thing where they're like, okay, here we go. And all they have is a heroic intervention to protect them. Being able to say like, okay, you have all these problems. I see all your problems. They're not my problem.
Someone else's problem now.
Yeah.
In fact, perhaps your own problem.
Exactly. And yet, threat and effects are huge. Insurrection was a bomb for a reason. If you can cast an Insurrection, it's probably great. But I also think like a Zealous Conscripts is pretty underrated in Commander in terms of like your mild Rossi.
Oh yeah. Just don't kiki-jiki it like a jerk. And
don't kiki-jiki it like a jerk.
I actually had my Rurik Thar deck. I had Zealous Conscripts and kiki-jiki both in it. Like, and then one game I just drew them both at the same time, and I'm like,
oh no.
Oh, right.
I didn't mean to do that. I got to Zealous Conscripts of Bolas' Citadel once, and I was like,
if you steal your opponent's card that's totally busted, you don't really feel bad about it.
No,
right?
You brought this to the table.
This is your fault.
I brought a 5-mana 3/3.
But that really is the thing, right?
Yeah.
With threaten effects, with clone effects, they have both the like, the humor of, stop hating yourself.
Right.
But also like they kind of calibrate to the level of what's going on at the table.
Yeah.
And if the table's doing powerful things like that person ramping into Insanity and playing, 8 drops or whatever, it's like, all right, well, I can do that too.
Yeah. It's a good way to get yourself on their level without, having to build this big green ramp deck. If it's a problem, you can play these cards, and it's a great way to
Taunt from the Rampart in particular, that card is bananas.
The card is bananas.
Like, so many of my decks are just creature decks. So Taunt from the Ramparts, I'm like, oh. Well, like I can't attack you, and I can't block, and
all of your opponents are suddenly doing math on how not to kill each other, and that's great math for you.
For sure.
The next one I want to talk about is something that I think could be played more in Commander to, I think, a relatively positive effect is Rule of Law type effects.
Okay.
Because Rule of Law is this kind of card that players are like, well, can't be fun. If we're only casting one spell a turn, this can't be fun. But what it does say is like, you have all this mana, you get one thing.
Yep.
And if you don't like your opponents having these big long storm turns where they do all these things, well, there's a card that says, don't do that.
Yeah.
And now we're all playing this like much more incremental game where we have to make specific choices and have to grow more like at the same level than when you're playing against green, which tends to snowball because they can cast so many spells in the same turn. So Rule of Law is, of course, like the iconic name of this, but there's a blue one. It's called Arcane Laboratory.
That was actually the original.
Yeah.
Arcane Lab was the original Rule of Law.
I had no idea that Arcane Lab. I mean, that makes sense. There's no old border Rule of Law. Yeah. Arcane Laboratory. You can play that in blue. Archon of Emeria.
You would play that in decks with a bunch of counter spells, so they could just counter one thing a turn.
Yeah. Sick. See, that's fun.
Don't do that in Commander.
This is fun. Here, I have an idea. What if in blue deck you play just counter spells?
And your commander is Arcane Lab.
Whoa. Do they have a Rule of Law legend? Because I'll build it. I mean, I would. Because I'm rude like that. But I think these are really interesting because they change the game in the way that like makes the game feel a little bit smaller. And if you're the kind of deck that isn't running a ton of ramp, if you're trying to curve out naturally and play like, you're trying to curve out, then this is great in your deck. And then you can take all of those talismans out of your deck and put in more proactive pieces, and your deck sort of works more on that axis.
Or you can leave all the talismans in your deck because your Rule of Law effect is Aethersworn Canonist.
You see?
Which is a 2/2 that prevents players from playing more than one non-artifact spell per turn.
Non-symmetrical Rule of Law effects. And then you can play Urza.
Hold on.
I mean, there's a lot of great ways to break parity on this. I think not running like a bunch of dead air like ramp cards is a good way to do it. But also you can play a lot of flash creatures. Or you can play a lot of instants. You can do things that make this limitation much better for your deck. And it's a permanent-based answer that doesn't say you can't do anything. It says you can do one thing. Will your opponents like this?
Maybe not.
Probably not. But if you tell them I told you could, told them you could. Rachel said I could play
I said
this.
you can play Aether Sworn Canonist because that can at least just get killed by creature removal.
Yeah. I think Archidekт of Mary is very fun.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
your non-basic lands come in tapped. Everybody loves that too. But these are good like static effects. The rest of the things that we're going to talk about are things that will draw attention of the table, and often in a negative way, which is sort of the worst thing you could do when you're like, I'm really afraid of that deck, is I'm going to play a card that gets the rest of the table to be mad at me. So these are, I think, like decent mechanical answers to the problem, but I don't know if they actually solve some of the social answer or questions that we're asking today, which is like, how do you actually disrupt this in a way that feels fun? So I do think rule of law effects should be more played in Commander. I think that they're not this terrible boogeyman.
I do think that rule of law effects are the sort of card that inversely scales. Like it scales with the power of the card and the disruptiveness of the card scales dramatically the more powerful the table you're playing at is.
Definitely,
like
yeah.
At a lower power table, like a pre-con table, or like, you know, just like a more casual table. Very frequently, people just do their one big thing a turn, and they're happy with it. Right?
Yeah. So this isn't. They're like, who cares?
Yeah. Whereas, like, as you get more powerful, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this and this and this and this. So I think that it's kind of the sort of thing you need to calibrate to your table.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing that is not super fun, but you can definitely do is make it more difficult for your opponents to search their library. And I think these are very interesting, especially at lower power tables, because they like, I don't know if they're interesting at lower power tables, but they're different at lower power tables because they will disproportionately affect the green deck. Because the green deck is going to be the one that is most often searching their library. Because if we're talking about like lower on the brackets, like bracket 2, most decks are not going to be playing a bunch of tutors. So this isn't going to be turning off demonic tutors and vampiric tutors. This is going to be turning off rampant growths and cultivates.
But if they are good, stop playing tutors. At least so many of them.
You're fine. You don't need them. Play more card draw.
Yeah.
So I think if you're like, I really want to slow down this with this one green like lands deck that's searching a ton, things like Aven Mind Sensor that say you can't search your whole library, you search the top 4, or even more broken, Ashok Dream Render. I almost hesitate to tell the world about this card because it's so rude. But it's very powerful. It's 1 and Dimir for a legendary Planeswalker Ashok. It says spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. And then -1, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard and exile each opponent graveyard. So this does everything Commander players hate, which is...
They hate mill.
They graveyard hate. Yeah. And it stops you from searching.
It is a Planeswalker, so it can at least just be attacked.
It can be attacked, yeah. But these are decent answers that say mechanically your green deck opponent is going to have a tougher time in that early game. The problem with things like this, because I find these are often what people will say as like an answer to green decks, is if you don't have them in the first 3 turns, they're pretty dead.
Yeah.
So I find that they're like a much less useful tool than like sort of closer to like the, not all the way to as bad as Armageddon, but like this looks like an answer to what you're looking for, but something like hitting them earlier in the game or playing a rule of law effect might actually be more fun and more useful more often.
I'm personally a fan of like Archivist of Ogma and,
perfect.
and Deep Gnome Terramancer.
Whenever an opponent searches their library, you benefit.
Yeah.
Or whenever an opponent hits their second land.
Deep Gnome Terramancer, I believe, is whenever an opponent puts a land in play beyond the first.
Beyond their first. Yeah. Deep Gnome Terramancer says whenever a land enters, if it hasn't been played.
Yeah.
It doesn't work if they have an additional land drops like against Azusa.
But it does work against like a rampant growth or, cultivates, things like that.
Any number of things. So those are more of like a catch-up type of mechanic where it says if you do something powerful, I'm also going to do something powerful, as opposed to you can't do powerful.
I also think that cards like Archivist of Ogma or Deep Gnome Terramancer, they are more kind of pleasant to play against.
Yeah.
It feels a lot worse being like, you can't do your thing.
Right.
Versus like, you do your thing and I also benefit. from the sort of social contract of Commander, I feel like one of those is a lot more agreeable than the other.
Right. And it doesn't do this thing that we were talking about before where it's like, I know we're all afraid of this green deck, but hate me more.
Yeah. But none of you can do the thing that you wanted to do.
Yes.
Oh, was your only land drop this turn a fetch land?
Oh,
well,
no. Oh, no. I'm so sad. The other thing that I think a lot of people lean on when you're looking at ways to answer green decks is they're like, what if I punish you for when you play lands? Like I play an Ankh of Mishra effect that says whenever a land enters the battlefield, Ankh of Mishra deals 2 damage to that land's controller. So if you're ramping a lot, you're also taking a lot of damage. And this is an interesting one because it's sort of just the opposite of what we were talking about before, which is if you do a powerful thing, something bad happens to you rather than you can't do the powerful thing. So I think this is closer to like an Archivist of Ogma thing that says like, okay, you can keep ramping, but you will pay the cost. That you could put it into a deck, but this only really answers again like land ramp.
Yeah,
decks.
and again only like early on.
Right.
The impact of like an Ankh of Mishra or Zozo the Punisher on like turn 6 when they're like, okay, I just won't get extra lands anymore.
That's fine. I have 8 lands already, and you have a card that doesn't do anything. So
yeah,
yeah, it's these sort of the vindictive effects is what I wanted to say. Look really good and are sort of have that effect that are like, okay, if they're doing something I don't want them to do, then I have to stop them from doing it. But what you can counterplay it by rising to their level with things that benefit from them doing the powerful thing, or matching the powerful thing with clones or steal effects, that kind of thing. Okay, so those are sort of the mechanical things, but there is like. This is a multiplayer format. The solution to the problem you're looking for isn't always on cardboard.
Yep.
Sometimes it is just saying like, okay, look, I'm going to draw attention to the fact that when Brian untaps, he will have 20 mana. We should do something about this.
Which episode of Commander was that quote directly from?
We should. I'm just going to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that stuff can slip by unnoticed. So if you notice that a green player is starting to snowball, that's the time to be like, hey, we should do something. We should start looking at ganging up on this person until they are more balanced, or we at least need to be ready for an overrun effect or be ready for some big threat to come down next turn. Because I think that's like sort of the thing that can be frustrating about playing against green is you're like, they just win out of nowhere every game. And you're like, you're just not reading the signs.
Yeah.
You haven't paid attention to how many cards they've drawn. You haven't paid attention to how many mana sources they have. And that development has taken time, but now it is here. So starting to pay attention early, recognizing ramp for the threat it is in the early game, and recognizing that ramp gets more dangerous the longer the game goes.
Oh, yeah.
Is the other thing. Because
cards get more powerful as mana numbers go up.
Yeah, but it's like, if you played a rampant growth on turn 2, then you have 1 extra land than everybody else. Assuming everybody plays 1 land drop after that, the more turns the game goes on, the more turns they've had 1 extra mana than the entire table. So on turn 3, they've had 1 extra mana. On turn 4, they've had 2 extra mana. On turn 5, they've had 3 extra mana. It becomes a bigger problem as the game progresses. So that length, giving the green player time to use all of that mana that they have invested in, is where things become a problem.
Yeah, attack them.
Hit them.
Listen. Happens to me all the time. Do it to your friends too.
And when in doubt, play green.
I mean, that's my solution.
Also ramp.
Just play a different green deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, are you having problems with green? Have you tried green?
You know, I have. And I'm here to give it my full-throated endorsement.
I'm putting that on the thumbnail. Brian Kibler has tried green. Oh, God. I do think that that's like kind of how Commander has progressed. Is like they saw the green deck doing really well, and a lot of decks sort of gradually became green, and a lot of decks sort of tried to figure out how to become green. Like other colors decided to be like, how can I play white as if it was green?
It is sort of funny, you know, because as a behind the curtain thing, we're, you know, I'm also playing a Commander night here at Command Zone, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
I have 2 decks with me.
Yeah.
Guess what colors they are?
Green.
No.
What colors are they?
I have 2 decks, and between the 2 of them, they have 1 total color.
Do you bring 2 mono white decks?
No, I have a mono white deck and a colorless deck.
Nice. So it's Felia and...
No, it's not Felia.
It's not Felia? You have multiple mono white decks?
Yeah.
Is this Dog and Pony?
No, I have 3 mono white decks.
Oh my God.
This is Delny.
Oh, okay. That's cool. What's the colorless deck?
The Regalia.
At Commander Night, Brian Kibler hit me with his car.
I called the cops.
Do you find that when you're building in other colors that you try to build them in a green style?
I mean, my colorless deck is the Regalia. It ramps
it
lands
gets
every time.
Fair.
I have Core Cartographer in my Delny decks.
Nice.
I also pretty sure I have both Archibus Agrabah and Deep Note Terramancer there. So
just in case.
Actually, I don't think Terramancer's in there because it can't double trigger. But
no. Yeah, once per turn. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I found that like a lot of players get frustrated with colors because they're like, well, it's just so far behind my green deck. And so it just feels like it's less powerful, but it's powerful in different ways. And there's like white decks can counterplay green decks by attacking them with flyers, and blue decks can counterplay green decks by bouncing all of their stuff and setting them back to the Stone Age.
Or also attacking them with flyers.
Or also attacking them with flyers. Black decks can attack them with flyers. That's how I play Magic. Every deck is an angel deck at the end of the day. All right. Before we go, I want to do any final advice that you would say to players that are just really struggling against a certain archetype, or they find themselves very frustrated losing in like to this same kind of deck.
I do think that, you know, we alluded to it earlier, but it is actually much more important than you think in terms of the outcome of games to take, especially, you know, or even just the early damage in a game seriously.
Yeah.
You know, like there, you know, it doesn't have to be, but if you care about winning your games,
right,
obviously not as like, you know, the foremost thing. We're here to have fun, play games in the first place.
If you're trying to play smarter and more intentionally.
If you are frustrated by losing and you want to win more, think more seriously about the kind of decisions you make with like the damage that you send around in the early game. There is, as we mentioned, the sort of, you know, general like philosophy among a lot of people. It's like, oh, we'll just spread damage around. If you're attacking, you know, the person who's playing like their, you know, pony theme deck as much as the person playing the green ramp deck, then the green ramp deck wins the game. It's kind of partly because of the decisions that you made, very likely, right?
You treated these decks equally. Yeah.
So, you know, I am the arch enemy all the time when I play, and a lot of people might get frustrated by that, and sometimes I do too, admittedly.
Absolutely. I get frustrated by that.
But like, I understand, right? And when someone's like, oh, I'm going to attack you because you look like you're going to do powerful things, it's like, yes, you are correct in doing so.
I intend to do powerful things.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that it is like important, if you care about the outcome of the game, to make decisions based on what you want that outcome to be.
Yeah. It's I do think that's very interesting is like Commander players can be very frustrated by the outcome of the game and can be very frustrated with like, I never get to do what I want, and I came here to do this, and then this always happens, and then don't actually think about that when they start.
Yeah.
And
you want to change the output, you got to change the input.
You have to change the input. And like, if you're worried about one thing, then build to accommodate for that one thing, or play to accommodate for that one thing. Or if you're constantly losing to a player at your table who plays green all the time and is walloping you, talk to that person and be like, you have a problem. No, I mean, just like make sure that everybody's expectations are the same going into the game. If you think that genuinely there's a power imbalance and it isn't just a color thing that you haven't adjusted for, have a conversation. It's supposed to be fun for everybody. If they're getting frustrated because you're losing to the same kind of deck all the time, then like look internally, see if you can fix something in your own deck, or talk to your friends and just make an adjustment, and hopefully, you come out of it feeling better. To the listeners, is green as big of a menace as people think? Honestly, I think it is. I think green is the most powerful color in casual, and I think it's just because it has natural strengths that fit the natural play pattern of Commander. And being able to combat that requires you to think outside of the Commander box sometimes. But what do you recommend for taking the green decks at your table down? That's to the listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, you can support the show by using our affiliate links. You don't have to spend any extra money. You just get to buy the cards we know you're buying by going to cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has all the cards in the world. They have so many and so many different printings, so many different conditions. And your Commander players, we know you're picky because I'm picky. I know exactly what kind of card I want, exactly what kind of condition and foiling and version. And I expect to be able to buy as many of them as possible in one place and have them show up on my doorstep, safe and sound. And I trust Card Kingdom to do that, and you can too. Get all those decks, start building, but buy some Rule of Law effects. I'm going to be trying them. I'm going to be nasty at the table by going to cardkingdom.com/command. And you can support those cards and the show by going to ultrapro.com/command and getting everything you need to keep your collection organized and protected. You get deck boxes, binders, sleeves, playmats, everything that you need looking sharp. I really love the Mana 8 collection because it has binders that match long boxes, that match sleeves, that match deck boxes. If you're like me and you want to make everything look super sharp and crisp, you can buy all of the Mana 8 stuff and have your collection looking really cool in the corner of your game room. And you can only pick that up at ultrapro.com/command. Okay, we've talked a lot about Magic. Do you have anything that you're doing outside of Magic that you're excited about right now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what you're doing?
Well, I don't know when this is actually going live.
I don't know. They know it's in the past.
Yeah, but Olivia and I are about to go to Bicoline.
Yeah, spell this for me.
BICO.
Okay.
LLINE.
Okay, what is this?
So it is a huge live-action role-playing event at a permanent 350-acre LARP site.
Oh my God!
It's like 2 hours north of Montreal in Quebec. We went last year for the first time.
That's
this is
amazing.
Specifically the Grand Bataille, their like big event every year. That's a week long.
Yeah.
We went for the first time last year. We had an incredible time. We're like, well, we're just going to go to this every year again.
For sure.
We even went to... Like,
how many people go to this?
Last year, there were 5,800.
Oh, my God.
That were at peak on site. There was the big Saturday battle, because this is like a medieval style immersive LARP thing. It's not necessarily like... It's kind of somewhere in the spectrum between what I would call like a immersive LARP and like a Ren Fair. It's definitely not a Ren Fair.
Right.
But... like they're very, very strict on like decorum. People have to be like in costumes. You can't have like modern technology out. So you're not like walking around taking pictures and videos and stuff.
Sure.
No TikTok dances in the streets or whatever.
I mean, that's awesome. Just a week away from technology is incredible.
I love it so much. And, we're super, super excited to go. Olivia and I are also going to be starting a LARP-focused YouTube channel.
Ooh.
I don't know when we're actually...
cool.
Make our first content.
It's called
for it.
LARP at Home.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to share the name publicly just yet.
Okay.
The channel does exist. You might be able to like do some sleuthing and find it because it's out there on YouTube.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm very excited to. That's one of the other sort of major passions in our lives. I actually went to my first LARP event before I ever played Magic back in 1993. I was 12. I was a child. And it wasn't until, I was a slightly larger child the next year that I started playing Magic. So.
That sounds awesome. That's very cool. Check that out and keep an eye out for the LARP channel around the corner from Olivia and Brian. That's very exciting. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you feel like you have some better tools for taking down the green player at your table. Brian Kibler, get him. He's always the threat, not me. I'm also the threat. Too many whispering. All right. Before we go, we have to say thank you to our team who made this episode and every episode like it possible. So thank you to Sebastian Salazar, Karina Cruz, Gaurav Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Becky Bell, Rachel Kendra, Eric Lem, Manson Lung, Josh Murphy, Eric Limburger, Sam Waldo, Josh Lee Kwai, Jimmy Wong, and... of course, to Brian Kibler for taking the time to talk about green with me. Someday we'll have you on here. It's a podcast that's not specifically about green, but,
Play one way.
We want you to talk about the things you love. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.